Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and our topic today is the Microsoft List Forms branching logic. It is a new feature that is just still rolling out. So this is those new modern list forms, and we'll go over an example of a new employee form and how to do branching logic. All right, again, so I'm Laura Rogers, Microsoft MVP. My training company is iwmentor.com for Information Worker Mentor. And this is a show that we've been doing for about 11 years, Wednesdays at 11 Central. And we go over all these topics for business users and power users in Microsoft 365. I send out a newsletter the day before for you to vote on the topic, and the link to the newsletter and the link to request to join to chat with us is all right underneath wherever you're watching this video. We have a chat going on in Teams. So you can watch the video live and chat with us while we're going, and it's really fun. So thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for coming and chatting with me. So we had some technical glitches, like a networking glitch. So it seems like it smoothed itself out, but I'm just going to keep going. So now we have in Teams, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We have in Teams notes that I share with you every day. And so it's all in there kind of with the chat. So let me see, I'll put that over here. All right, so here's Teams, and here's where we're chatting. And yeah, y'all are saying that my it's glitchy. I'm just going to keep going. So this is where we have our tab for today, 226, and our chat is this little chat bubble. And then I have the notes here. So the notes are where I put every week, I'll put some reference information. So here's some branching logic information. This is Microsoft's link to a blog post they wrote about this new feature. And then this is all the logic. So you can take a look at this while I'm going. This is the logic for the new employee form that I'm going to be building. So the concept of branching logic is that you have a form someone's filling out, and as they choose things throughout filling out the form, different things will light up, different questions will get asked to them depending on what they select. So for example, on this first one, employee type, you have full-time, part-time, contractor. If they select contractor, then it's going to ask contracting company name. But if they select full-time or part-time, it's going to show a department drop-down. So you get the gist. So kind of as you go down, it's just got a lot of different options depending on what you select as you're going. So let me see, go back to the chat here. All right, great. So now, so that's where I highly recommend just taking a look at that notes tab and kind of keeping it up while I go so I can show you. And I'll go ahead and show you an example. So I've already done this to show you what it looks like ahead of time. And then I'm going to build a new one. So this is my new employee form. And I'll just go ahead and go to the list settings so you can see all of the columns that I already created. I didn't want to make you watch me type all those out. But as you can see, I have, first name, last name, employee type is a choice. And then this is basically a list of what all those different questions were that I just showed you in the notes. And a lot of them are choice columns. Choice columns are going to be great for branching. Something to note real quick is that when you have some of these, it'll say that they're yes, no questions. Yes, no fields don't work with the branching logic. So instead of creating yes, no fields, I went ahead and made them choice and then just made the two choices yes and no. So that's a little workaround that you might have to notice that you might have to do. And then, can I move this out of the way here? All right, so that's what all the fields are that I created. I'll go ahead and see if I can zoom in a little. So if you're watching this later, if you want to rewind it and look at what those are. So I'll go back up to the form. Now, as you know, the regular SharePoint list form does not have branching logic. So if I go to the list and I create new item, this is not where the branching logic is. This is in the new forms button here. And we did have a whole power hour about the forms concept. So I'm going to go ahead and preview this form and fill it out and show you the branching logic that I've already built and how it works. And then I'll go just create a new form on the same list and just build it out again. And I'll kind of show you my trials and tribulations as I work through that. Okay, so I'm going to have, I have George Jetson. I'll do Judy Jetson. And then Judy Jetson is going to be a part-time employee. So since she's part-time, it's asking her department. And then I'll just say the department is marketing. Now, does Judy need CAD software access? I'll just say no for that one. And then it's going to go straight to work location. I'll say office. And then the last question is manager name. So you know there are a lot of questions on this form, but when she filled it out, Judy filled it out as very succinct, and it only asked the questions it needed to ask based on what she selected. So what we're presented with when we go create, so this is the form that I already created. And again, I was going to share it with you, but since you all are external users, it won't work. Since you're in my tenant, it would only work for people that actually have accounts in my tenant. You'll get an error saying that it's only for the link is only for internal employees. All right, so I'm going to do a new form. And notice that I already created all the columns, and the columns are listed here. And if you start adding new columns as you're building this, you do need to go through and go ahead and put check boxes next to the ones you want to be included. Employee forum demo. And then you can put a description and a logo, which, as you saw, I did that on the other one. Now this is just the regular form and all the fields. Here's where the branching logic is. This is that magical button. So click the branching logic button. And now this is where we start getting to build that. So this is the fun part. So this is, it's kind of like an art. There's kind of an art to it. You kind of have to really visualize what the form is going to look like as you're building it, as you're building the logic of what it's going to ask next. So the way this works is every single field listed here is going to have a go to. So the fields that have choices are going to allow you to go somewhere else depending on what each choice is. Now the text fields, you can't do logic based on just what somebody types in a text field. So text fields are pretty much going to, there's not a decision you're making really. You just say if you want to go to the next question here is last name, or if you want to just jump to another question, or if you want to jump to the end of the form. So first name and last name, those are pretty simple. I don't need to do anything special. And then full-time, so I'll just do contractor first since that's the next question here. Contractor I need to ask contracting company name. Now, if they're not a contractor, I want them to go down to this department column. So I'll go to departments. So part-time, full-time, departments. And let me make sure I can see your chat here. There we go. Okay. And you all just, you can ask questions and chat with me and have a fun discussion as we're going, or let me know if you have any questions. And then after contracting company name, where do I want to go? So this is something to pay attention to. I'm not just going to skip straight down to the next thing. I need to pay attention to every single question because by default, contracting company name has next here. But if they're contractor, in this example, we're not going to ask them the department. So that was just, obviously it's up to you for your company. If you need to know a department for contractors, you might need to know that. But in this example, I don't want to know that. So I'm just going to skip it. So if I am a contractor, all these questions having to do with being in the IT department, being in the marketing department, those aren't what I'm going to ask contractors. So I'm going to skip all the way down to the work location field because everybody is going to get asked that question. Also pay attention to what's required. So when I was creating these questions, I made required fields for the ones that are important that I need, I need to know what they're filling out in order to do the branching logic. So setting fields as required is going to be important too for, don't set them as required if only some of the people are going to be filling them out and they're part of some branching. We'll test that too. We'll test the, setting a field as required and kind of what it does and what if it might restrict something. We'll do that last. Okay, so when I pick employee type, I already have that. It's going to the right place. Now department has a few different ones. So if they're in IT, I need to ask what kind of admin access they have, and this is just a text field. So if they're IT, I need to go to the IT admin access. If they're marketing, I need to know if they have marketing software required. So it's skipping the IT admin access. And then the other two, look at this again, they're defaulting to next. So if they're HR or finance, I don't want them to go to the next question. The next question is about the IT and the marketing software. If they're in HR or finance, we don't have any specific questions for them. We're just going to jump all the way down to work location. And as you can see, as you're building these, it's going to require a lot of testing. So when you do this, you're going to want to test every single scenario and make sure that the right fields are showing when you pick the right things. So then IT admin access, that one's fine. It's just a text field. So it's just going to go, it just has next here. But for IT people, I don't want them to get asked about the marketing software. So IT people are just going to go to, let's see, work location. Oh, look at that. So here, I thought I had an IT software question. Okay, so I had an IT question that I added later when I created these fields in the list, and it put it way down here at the bottom, well, towards the bottom. But I need this to be more in the order of where it, for the logic, for the branching logic. So having these in the right order is going to make a difference because I can't jump all the way down from department to IT software, and then I can't jump back up. So really pay attention to what where you're placing these in the order just before you even start the branching logic. So this one is going to be, I'll go to, these are the IT questions, the IT computer software, the IT specific software needed, and then people will jump to work location. So I had to rearrange those just in the fields of the form. Okay, so IT goes to IT admin access. IT admin access goes to, and then this is the IT computer software needs. That's where I want it to go next after that. And then, so it does involve a lot of scrolling up and down and going back and forth and make sure you covered everything. So then if they choose marketing and they choose marketing software required, if yes, I do want it to go next. I want them to ask about the marketing software. But if they don't, I need to go all the way down to work location. Because these questions are for IT, the computer software needs and the IT software, those are just for IT people. So when someone chooses which marketing software they need, I don't want it to go to next because these two questions are only for IT. So again, I'm jumping to work location. So since work location is something that I want to ask everyone that fills out this form, a lot of these questions are jumping straight to that one. So, and again, testing would definitely highlight, when I'm missing things here. And then I only want them to be asked about the IT software needed if they choose specific software here, and not, I don't want it to go next from laptop and desktop. So, and again, some of this, you might be like, that's not realistic. You probably want a computer and software. Just go with it. We're just kind of showing how the branching logic works. And we can check out what it would do if it had a multiple options selected, kind of what the experience would be for that. I have a feeling that the branching logic wouldn't work if I allowed them to select multiple. So again, this one is going to go to work location. And then it's only going to go to next if they pick IT software. And then again, work location, everybody's jumping to work location for probably pretty much from all those other questions. And then the next question is, if they're remote, do I need to ship equipment to them? So if they're remote, ship equipment. And then otherwise, don't go next, go to, so actually I could just leave this as next right here if I wanted to for remote, because that's the next question. And then these other ones are just going to go to manager name. Now, if I didn't have any more questions and I didn't have manager name there, and it was just the end of the form when they choose if they're not remote, I could just choose end of form and then it would be done. But I went ahead and put manager name in here as the very last question. So ship equipment, if they choose no, it's just going to jump to manager name. And if they choose yes, it's going to go to shipping address. So I wish I could get you all to try this out, since it's fun, interactive thing that it has a whole bunch. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure. It's got a lot of different branches it could go down. So now let's go ahead and preview this. And this is what the experience is going to look like for someone filling it out. See, it's just asking me those 3 questions. I'll just say Homer Simpson. And then I'll just say Homer is a contractor. Now, contractors aren't going to be asked that many questions. So work location, I'll say remote, and ship equipment, yes, and then shipping address. And then I'll just be the manager. Notice I made that a required field. Submit. Okay, I can go submit another response. I can see what it looked like. Let's go try somebody in marketing. Employee type, full-time, department marketing. So when you are testing your branching logic, go through every single permutation, because again, there are a lot of times that I just choose, I go through it, and a lot of them have the word next in the options, and you don't want it to go next. There's like a certain question you need it to skip through. So that's where you just have to really just make sure you go through every single scenario. So I'll just say work location is office, and then it just goes straight to manager name. And there we go. Okay, so what do you all think? Let me know if you have any questions. That's how branching logic works. That's also how branching logic works for Microsoft Forms. It's the same concept. So forms.microsoft.com. Now, I did a whole other Power Hour about forms versus lists versus Power Apps. Versus, it was like the modern form versus the list form. And so I was comparing all these different form products and what you get with each one. And at the time, there wasn't any branching logic in that modern form. So now it's like a lot of the things that exist in Microsoft Forms, they're pulling them in to be available in this little modern forms product. And again, modern forms can be shared. When I go here and I say send form, copy the link, that's where you would send people to go fill out this form. You're not going to be sending them to the list to fill out the form. These forms are made for you to do something like put it on the home page. So if I go, if I have this form that I want people to fill out and maybe they don't have access, I don't want to give them access to the list. I don't want everybody who's a new employee to see the list of all the new employees and all their information. So I want to maybe put a quick link web part. Where did I just put that? Do quick links. And then I have that link that I just copied from the form. I can put it in here as a quick link. And then that's where people will be clicking to fill out that form as opposed to going to the list. Let's see, new employee. And you get the gist. And then it's a cute little button. You can put an image on it, make it look lovely. But that's where they're going to go, and they would not have access to this whole list of everybody. So that's one of the huge bonuses to having these modern list forms, is that people can still submit things to the SharePoint list without having to have access to the SharePoint list. And that's been a big request. So if I go to Microsoft Forms, and I'll just give like a really quick, simple, no, they can't be sent to external users. That I can't, even though y'all technically are users in my tenant because I invited you as external users, it still doesn't work. I can't send it to you, and I also can't send it to somebody anonymous. So that's one of the things that Microsoft Forms has that this modern form in a SharePoint list doesn't have yet, is just the ability to send it to anybody or even have it be anonymous. Yes, Rebecca, people would be able to submit the form if they had only read permission or no permission. So I'm just going to do a real quick one, name, and I'll do employee type. So I'll just give you a real quick example of the same thing I just did in the SharePoint modern form in Microsoft Forms, so you can see how similar the branching logic is. So employee type. Just put contractor in full time. And then so what you do when you're building all the branching logic is you do create all the questions first, and then you add on the branching logic. So in this example, I'll just say contracting company. And then department. Just put a couple of things. And I'll just do just one thing in this one, just to show you visually what the branching looks like here compared to what it looks like when you're building it in the list form. There we go. Add branching. Thank you. Jur. I can always count on Jur. He's like got all the technical expertise. All right, so add branching. So it's on the actual questions. So I'd say contractor, I want to go to contracting company, and then full time, it's just going to go next. I don't want it to go next. I want it to go to department. And then after contracting company, I don't want them to be asked what department they're in. So then I'm going to go to the end of the form. So then, okay, so now that this has branching logic, I'll go ahead and preview it and fill it out. So let's see, see if I choose contractor, it asks me contracting company, but if I choose full-time, then it asks me department. And then you would use that same logic that we used, the same concepts that we used in the list form to be able to do it in the Microsoft form. Senior moment. So let's show one more example. Now, that was how to do it in the modern forms, how to do branching logic, how to do branching logic if you're creating Microsoft forms. If you create a Microsoft form, you would have to create a flow if you wanted the items to go into a SharePoint list. So it's a lot of extra work. And then the next thing I'm going to do just for fun is show you a little bit of logic in Power Apps so you can see how different the Power Apps logic is from the other two products that have the branching logic. So Power Apps doesn't have branching logic. It has logic that allows you to hide and show things according to certain values. So I'm going to go customize this form with Power Apps. This is going to take a minute for the Power App to spin up. Power Apps is trying to crash my live stream. Okay, so here is, I click to customize this form with Power Apps. And now it doesn't have all the fields on the form by default. So I could go here and add all the other fields. Let's do this fairly quick. IT software, I'll just pick a couple of things. Work location. And then just one of the first things I like to do with when I create a Power App is change it, especially when I customize a list form, change it to landscape so that I have more real estate, and I can kind of make put the fields next to each other. And also you can fit more fields on your form when you have, and you can arrange it better. If you need the fields to all be arranged a certain way, that modern SharePoint form and the Microsoft form are not going to have that. So as you can see, I can have all these fields that will fit on this form. Manager name, marketing software, blah, 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 blah. And then I've got first name, last name, employee type, contracting company, department, and then IT admin, IT software are going to be just if you choose IT. And then I've got, I'll move this one up to, and I'm trying to kind of put them in order here, kind of rearranging these. And work location needs to be after that. Okay. There. I didn't put all the fields on there, but I want to show you the concept of being able to create logic and how different it is and how it's a little bit more of a learning curve for creating logic in the Power App. So when I have, of course, everybody gets first name, last name, employee type, and then contracting company, I only want that to show if they choose it's a contractor here in this dropdown. So, and this is from the employee type field. And then, so I need to use logic. So I'm just going to do one or two of these just to show you how different this is. I know we've done whole other power hours on logic and Power Apps, but I want to rename this. So I'll call this is a combo box CMB employee type. So anytime I want to do logic based on a certain selection, I just go ahead and rename that. So since I'm writing a formula based on that. So let me see if so I need to have the exact word. So contractor. So if they choose contractor, then I want contracting company name to show. So that is going to be the visible property. So I go to the thing that I want to show or hide, select that whole card, go to the property called visible, and then this is where I have to actually write an expression to say when I want this card to be visible. So I'll just say CMB employee type dot selected, whatever they select when they click on it, equals contractor. All right, notice it immediately disappeared. So then I can go here and it says full-time. I'll change it to contractor and look at that. See, it appears here. So then I would want to, you can go around. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time in Power Apps in this session, but you would go around to all of your different cards, and in that visible property, that's where you would write the expression of when you want that to be visible. So as you can see, it's a lot more time consuming, a lot more complicated. You can do a lot more with it. You can also, there's also a field, a property called required. So you can set logic on when you want things to be required and not required in Power Apps. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to that list form that we were doing, because let's talk about a couple of other things that you're probably wondering. What about required fields? And what about if they have multiple items selected? So now that you've seen kind of, everything that's possible and what it can do, versus the other products, let's look at a couple of scenarios that might be a little tricky. So I'm going to go in here and go to, I'll go to the list settings. I don't have all these showing as columns, so I'll just go straight here. And if I go to the contracting company name, which is not going to be everybody, because if you're not a contractor, it's not even going to ask you this question. I'm going to change that to required. I'm also going to say I could have, for computer and software needs, maybe I want them to be allowed to select multiple things. Okay, so now, and of course, add new item is not what you're going to click. There's no branching logic in here. I'm going to go ahead and go to forms. And then this is the demo one that I just did. So here is, let's go try and preview it. I want to see what happens with that contracting company name that's now required. So let's see, test. So if I choose contractor, you can see contracting company name and it has a red asterisk. But when I choose full-time, it's not showing me contracting company name. I'll just choose finance here, and then work location is just going to be office. and manager name is required. And see if it lets me submit it without filling out a required field. Look at that, it did. So even though contracting company name was required, it let me skip it because of the branching logic. So that's really good though, because if you want to make sure that if they're a contractor that they're filling out what their contracting company name is, it will enforce that and they won't be able to submit the form without it. But if they don't see the field at all, then they're still going to be able to submit their form. So that's really good. So let's go look at that other one. I'll say full-time and department is, let's see, what was the question? It was the software one. And so all these ones that I want to make sure that they fill out, if they choose that they're full-time and what their department is, I can just make them all required. So if it shows, then it's required. All right, so now notice that I can choose a couple of these. So I have desktop and specific software, and look at that. It is asking me that next question. So that's good. So that means in your branching logic, you're basically saying that question the answer contains specific software. So it doesn't have to be just one thing selected. If they choose specific software along with anything else, then it is still going to ask them that question. So does that, do you all have any other kind of more technical, like how the logic works? Any questions like that? There we go. And look at that. All right, so let's see. I'm going to add, I just want to see contracting company name as a column. And oh, look at that. So this is going to be kind of this is kind of what you get if you make something required and then you're showing it as a column. I made it required, but I made it so you don't have to fill it out if you're not a contractor. But now if somebody's looking at the list here and just a list of everything, it's going to show all these little errors saying that these have required info they haven't filled out. And if somebody goes to that list form and edits it and tries to save it, it's going to make them fill out this required field. So it was only not required in that custom modern form, but if somebody edits the item like this, then it is going to give an error and it is going to look like it has an error. So yeah, so I mean, you got pros and cons with everything. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up. So we did, I'll just switch this back over. We did an example of a modern SharePoint list form / Microsoft lists form and talked about how the branching logic works. I gave you the entire outline of what the logic is supposed to be and talked about how you build out that logic. You definitely need to test it out many times when you build these to make sure every scenario is asking the right questions. And then I showed you what the difference is between that and just a regular out-of-the-box list form. And then we went over and looked at Microsoft forms real quick to see the difference and how the branching logic works over there. It's conceptually the same. But then we looked at Power Apps and to see how the logic works in Power Apps. And it is a very different concept, very different way of thinking through that. But it's a lot more flexible and more complicated. So hopefully you've got an idea of logic in forms and how you can know which product to choose when you're building your forms, know which type of form product you need to use, and then how you'll be able to achieve those more complex forms that have logic involved. So thanks for coming to Power Hour. This is Wednesdays at 11 Central. You can go to iwmentor.com and click on the schedule at the top. Subscribe and follow me on YouTube, WanderLaura.